I would like to talk about Hee Jin-nim's mother. I had a chance to interview her. Hee Jin-nim's mother. When I was at the History Compilation Committee, I found a red-covered book in the bookshelf. It was called Sarobia. It was a compilation of poems. And I was reading these poems, and I wondered why an individual this book was in our archive. So I read that book, and I really was very hit and touched by the poems. I can really feel the author was talking about her relationship with God, her relationship with True Father, and also many kind of deep artistic content was reflected in the poem. So spiritually, I felt that there was something with this book. I felt that the author of this book was not a normal, was an extraordinary person, and I wanted to meet that person. At that time, I didn't even know anything about it. And later, I found out that the author was Hee Jin-nim's mother. So at that time, I took the book and brought it to Reverend Yu Gwang-yeol, who was the chairman of the committee, and I asked him who wrote this. Who is this person? The author was one person by the name of Myung Hee. It was at a time when we couldn't freely talk about Hee Jin-nim's mother. He just said, "You don't need to know about this," and he was actually angry at me for trying to know about things that I shouldn't know. Apparently. So I was. But still, anyway, I wanted to know who this person was. The poem was really extraordinary. So I took that book and I went to Dr. Sang-Hung Lee because his office was next door. The Unification Thought Institute was right next door to our building. So I went to Dr. Sang-Hung Lee. I had lunch with Dr. Sang-Hung Lee, and I asked him. I was talking about a lot of things with him. And I really enjoyed talking about history, so I would always often go and have a lunch with Dr. Sang-Hung Lee to really hear about the stories and about the history of the church. So I think I had a chance. There were those very happy times, and Dr. Sang-Hung Lee really taught me a lot of things, maybe as if in preparing for me to give lectures like I am today. And anyway, when I asked Dr. Sang-Hung Lee, he said, "Well, I guess you are ready, so, and because you are a person who is dealing with history, I think you should know about it." But then he said that it was Hee Jin-nim's mother, in other words, father's second wife. So that was when I first found out that this person was, who this person was. So Hee Jin-nim's mother, his younger brother is Reverend Kim Chang-gyung. And so I went to Reverend Kim Chang-gyung and asked her where she lived. And he told me her address. And I found out she lived in Ansang, Gyeonggi province in Korea. So I went to her house in Ansang. And I brought that red cover book with me. And in the beginning, of course, it was not easy to meet her, but I understood that she was going to Ansan Unification Church. So the pastor there allowed me to arrange the meeting, and I was able to meet her. And I showed her the red cover book. I wasn't, of course. I still didn't, I was meeting her for the first time, so I just introduced myself, saying that I was from the History Committee, and I said that I really felt that this red cover book was really extraordinary, and I came here to kind of better understand the poem that you wrote. She talked about her poem, and then she started to talk a little bit about the stories behind the reason why she wrote the poem. So then I continued to meet her after that, not just once, but twice, 3 times. And then one day I asked her, saying that I have a mission. Because as a person who is here in the History Committee, and I promised her that I will not talk about this until the time is right, but I would like to leave a record about this story. And with that promise, she accepted my interview. In the beginning, she said she didn't want her voice to be recorded or the video to be recorded. But in the end, I was able to persuade her to record her interview on the condition that I would not make it public. So I had a chance to interview her for 3 days. Now she has said, of course, I can make it public. So that is why I can tell this to you. I can say this to you right now. After after Choi Sung-gil failed, father met Hee Jinim's mother and explained to her about the role of Eve. Actually, Kim Myung Hee Jinim's mother, came from the Holy Lord's Church, and she then they did not hold an official marriage. However, it is because Hee Jinim's mother was in the position of the growth level, and once she could succeed the position of the daughter, then she could really go to be the holy wedding, to the position of the holy wedding. She was in any way she became pregnant, and then she was sent to go to the Eve's nation, in other words, Japan, and to give birth there and to come back. There was that providential condition that she goes to Japan and come back. So Hee Jinim's mother went to Japan, and there was one Yu Gyong who went with her, escorted her to Japan as her bodyguard. At that time, Korea and Japan did not have a visa. And because Japan had ruled Korea for 40 years, it was very difficult for Koreans to enter Japan at that time. So she actually went to Japan without an official visa. They borrowed a boat and kind of went in Japan in order to... so Hee Jinim's mother there was that providential condition that she go to Japan and have a baby there. So she went to Japan. So in that situation, she had the baby, and she raised the baby in Japan. Then father told her to come back to Korea, saying that it is now time to do the holy wedding. But because she didn't have a visa, she could not leave Japan. Before the baby was still in the womb, so it was easy for her to go into Japan. But now she had to go out with the baby in her arms. So she was not able to secretly go out of Japan with that baby. So she tried to get a visa to leave Japan. So they worked with one of the officials at the immigration office. That person was actually a Korean who lived in Japan, and he promised her that he would create a visa for her so that she can leave Japan. One day, however, this immigration official, came to Hee Jinim's mother's house to make a passport. So she welcomed him to her home, and they were talking and began to discuss. But suddenly, this official raped Hee Jinim's mother. So after being raped, when she was talking about her story, she was crying, and I could understand how she must have felt at that time. And she was supposed to carry out the mission of Eve, but being violated like that, the first thing that she thought about was father, as she was being violated, and she wanted to really support and fulfill her mission as Eve. But she could not. She was so ashamed of herself that she could not face father. In any event, after that incident, she somehow managed to come back to Korea, and she sent Hee Jinim to father at Cheonpadong, but she herself did not go to father.